This is diesel heater option 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. We started planning for the heating system in this boat when we bought it. So even 9 months before I saw the thing, we were already planning out what we were going to use for heater. The original idea was a Danish reflex system, phenomenal heater. We actually purchased one, sent it to Florida, and by the time we had it and we put it in place, realized the thing is just gigantic. It was going to be way too large for our boat. It just take up too much space. So we started looking at Craigslist. Finally, I found one that popped up in Fort Myer area. Went and picked it up. This is a Faball, but it became Sigmar. It is, I think, their 170 model. Great system, great setup. So we bought this. We bought all the little accessories this came with it, but some of the other stuff we had to buy separate to install here. The problem is, we realized that it takes up a lot of space. Unlike a conventional boat, or like most fiberglass boats, we don't have bulkheads to mount this. So we don't have an area that we could actually mount it against. We have to put it kind of in our traffic pattern, our way that we usually move in the boat. It needs a space around it, both so it doesn't burn things and so it doesn't burn us as well. So the idea was we were going to install it right in this area here. In between this compression post for the mast and between the galley area. So every single time we'd have to walk around it. Again, it's an extra step, not a big deal. Visually though, it just dominates. It takes up a ton of space inside this boat. When these things are against a bulkhead, they're pretty and romantic looking and very shippy type thing. Unfortunately, where we had to mount it, it was just going to be this big industrial looking thing inside our boat, which I didn't really want. Really what it came down to, again, we have this all sitting here. It'd take just a few minutes to install it. Our door vents, we don't even need to cut a hole in the deck. The door vents are 3-inch pipes, which happen to actually be the same size as what a chimney is. So you could just use a slip joint, slide it right in. We don't have to cut a hole in the roof at all. We can plumb for it for the fuel off of one of our tanks. We have extra tanks off of one of our diesel tanks, or we even have a day tank for this as well that we can feed it that way. So it doesn't use any power. It doesn't. It's actually very efficient burning, so it produces a lot of heat. It's very reliable because there aren't a lot of moving parts in this, and it's the conventional thing. It's what most people want on these types of boats when they're going into Arctic type areas. We're not really. We're just going in the summer. Then we're running south for winter into the UK for winter, where we'll most likely be able to plug into shore power, or we'll just use our forced air diesel system. Negative for us with this, really the biggest problem that we run into is we have found out that we overheat in this boat because of the insulation, because of the way it's set up. A little small heater has been more than sufficient, down to about 30 degrees temperature. Run away! Run away! This little guy has been more than enough on this boat. The duty cycle for it with the thermostat, really what it does is it turns on for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then it flips off for about 20 to 25 minutes. That's at 750 watts. That's the lowest setting this thing can do. Problem is, this can put out a lot more power. Even on its lowest setting, it's actually going to put out more heat, and it's consistent heat. There's no thermostat, so you can't turn it on and off. It just keeps going. Now, we can open up hatches, we can open up the companionway and try to let air out, but of course it's inefficient and it's hard to regulate what it's actually going to be for the temperature in here. So it becomes a problem of we're just going to roast ourselves out. It's going to be too much. This is too much power for this. In the middle of winter, we may want this. But the BTUs, how much heat output comes from this, we can do that with the forced air system that we just installed as well. So we'll get comparable from that, and it has a thermostat on it. So it will automatically go full blast right when you turn it on to heat this up to the temperature that you desire. Then it will back itself down Not only will it back down the fan speed, so it can actually lower the fan speed, raise and lower the fan speed, it can actually turn itself off, idle at that point, then flip itself back on. It will all regulate itself, which this cannot do. So for us, that's our biggest thing, besides the optics, besides the cosmetics of this being in the way. The forced air system is just, it's going to take care of itself for us. The other thing too is we can always go to shore power if we have to. If we need to go into a marina, we can plug in with this. But we don't anticipate that we're ever going to be in a situation where it's a life or death type of thing. Georgie may be uncomfortable. We may have to pile on some blankets, but we should be absolutely fine with heat. So not really worried about that. It's more just being able to regulate the temperature inside the boat, dry it out, and all those things. So I think the forced air is probably the better approach for us than this guy. After deciding that we were not going to use that diesel drip heater that we just went over, we needed to purchase either a forced air or a hydronic, which is runs through like a water heater, a heat exchanger type thing. Price was probably the biggest determination as what direction we went. Also, our ease of running either water lines or heating duct. Luckily, the way that the boat is set up with this pilot house setup, everything's kind of raised a little bit, and it creates kind of a floorboard underneath that makes it really, really simple to run the heat duct. Simple as in boat terms, it's probably still going to take me a week to do, but it's simple. So we ended up going that route just because of the fact we could buy a diesel forced air heater for extremely cheap. These come out of China now. They're a knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff, I think. They do get very good reviews. People that have had them install them, there's a Facebook group for them that has just a ton of installs in cars and in vans and all these different things. They get good reviews, they're functional, they work, but the biggest thing is they're extremely cheap. This ended up being in US dollars for the whole kit, ended up being I think 130 US. The equivalent name brand version would be, with the adapters and everything like that, would be a little over 1,000. So huge, almost 10%. This is almost 10% of the cost of what the name brand version would be. So we decided to give it a shot. Worst case scenario, we're out a few bucks here. But the big thing is the fact that I'm going to install this first. But once we confirm that it's going to work for us, I can order a second one, and the unit's fairly small, easy enough to vacuum bag it and store it elsewhere, that we can swap it out if we need to. So it does give us that redundancy there.
And we'll finally get rid of the big diesel heater, which will free up some room in storage.
Yes, we have that huge diesel heater. We'll be able to clean that out, get rid of that, hopefully recoup our cash on that one, and fill that void with another one of these. It should work out. The biggest things for us are, again, the fact that it actually has a thermostat. This one being a digital thermostat, so it'll regulate and we won't overheat inside the boat. So that's one of the big things with it. The other thing too is it has a remote control, so I can be sitting in bed in the morning and click it on and wait for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and the boat will be nice and warm when I climb out. So that's how lazy I actually am. So that was kind of a nice little bonus too that comes with it. So that is basically it. We are going to go through the install. Again, nothing real fancy. Just have to run the piping through, run a fuel line off of. We have 3 diesel tanks. We're going to dedicate kind of one of them, which is a 20-gallon tank. We're going to dedicate that to the heating system. For now, just to see how that works out. We don't usually use that tank anyway. It's full, but we just don't usually draw fuel from it. So we'll use that, and these things won't run well on kerosene. We can actually switch over to that. So there's a lot of different options there. But the big thing is going to be drilling a hole in the transom of our boat for the exhaust to come out, running the lines, drilling into the woodwork and into the head for the duct. About a 3-inch hole there, 76 millimeter, 3-inch hole in both of those, and running electronics for it. So I'm sure it's going to be like a 2-hour job.
Sure.
So next month we'll actually have this thing installed. By the time we're back from Norway, I'm sure it'll be up and running.
Okay, so as it stands right now, this is kind of the temporary setup. As you can see, the brackets are not quite large enough or strong enough. A little weak there. I wasn't able to order new brackets yet. Kind of waiting on being able to measure the whole thing. So now that I have it in hand, I got new stainless steel brackets coming, which look something like these. So this is what I've used before. This is supporting the autopilot pump. So we'll have a similar setup here, and hopefully that'll be strong enough that it isn't like a diving board. So ran the lines, the hose down, had to splice in pieces together. Not my finest work, but it's kind of a work in progress. So we'll get new brackets here. I have not ran the exhaust yet. So that is going to be the next step, is running the exhaust down. Right now I'm doing the wiring, which is going to go in this loom that runs down and around. So this is 14 gauge duplex wire, and this is actually powering the system. Ran that back to the circuit breaker, and then we had to extend also the fuel pump line and the line for the sensor, the thermostat. The line for the thermostat is just basically a 3-wire. Oh, this is the fuel pump. Fuel pump is a 2-wire, so that's using duplex wire, and then I have a 4-wire, so quadplex wire that is previously has been used for Sea Talk for Raymarine, and some of the Simrad stuff that I had left over, so it's a shielded cable, and luckily I had long enough for that. So that's going to be spliced in. That will run back to basically like the nav desk area, and should be all set. Wire it up. Then I have to open up the loom again, feed everything into the loom so it's nice and neat and protected, and I'll be wrapping up the wiring. Not that big of a deal. So far I am probably 2 hours into this right now. So installed the bracket, installed the big hose through, and ran most of the wiring so far. So it's going well, which kind of scares me.
Time for the through haul for the exhaust for the heater. This is just a stainless steel through haul. Normally you'd use a hose on it. It did have a hose attachment, a hose barb on the end. Unfortunately, this came from China as well, and the advertised size was nowhere near what it actually was when it arrived, of course. So, angle grinder. Ground down the edge here so we can actually fit the exhaust on it. Kind of a stupid setup. Normally on a fiberglass boat you have to worry about heating the fiberglass on either side. An aluminum boat, it doesn't matter, you're not going to heat that up, and if you do, it's just aluminum anyway, so not a big deal. So I don't need the double wall that you normally have on a fiberglass boat, so I get a nice little pretty thing instead of that big giant through haul that you normally have on those. So going on, high temp sealant on here, and actually will be on where the hose attaches or the exhaust attaches as well. Something for this part, it's a muffler tailpipe sealant. Not the most elegant solution, but it does work. It does seal this, so we don't have to worry about exhaust coming into the cabin. Let's get this installed. Drilled the hole already, and we used a bucket to catch the shavings so they didn't go in the water. Again, aluminum, not a big deal at all, but better safe than sorry. So we did catch all of the extra crumbs from falling in the water, most of them, and let's get this bad boy installed.
Big thing for us is using the sealant to prevent the stainless steel from reacting with the aluminum as well. Not just to seal the exhaust, smells, and fumes, but to prevent our boat from corroding. So lots of sealant is the answer. More is better.
Now I get to help.
As per usual. Okay, don't drop that in the water, please. Put that in the hole.
Okay.
Hold that. You are going to be the one
To keep it from twisting.
to keep it from twisting.
All right. Let's see how I do.
So pretty.
So pretty. So shiny.
For now. It is cheap Chinese stainless steel, so we'll see. Okay, so that's step 600
Yeah.
in this process.
Did you find some seagulls, Georgie? Doing a little bird watching. Just wait till we get to the Orkneys, you'll find puffins. And won't that be fun? We appreciate you staying on the boat instead of running away. And there you go. Had to say something. This is not where you're supposed to be, cat. You're supposed to be on your leash and harness. Now come here so I can put it on you. Georgie girl, come here. Why aren't you listening to me? Cats. Don't make me get on this boat. You're not even supposed to be on this boat. Georgie. Erg. Come on, Georgie, come on. Oh, what can I say? This cat loves boats and she gets on every single one that she has a chance to. Just need to get her back on them. Go home. It's right there. You can see it. I don't want to have to come on here and get you.
So now just wrapping our exhaust. The exhaust that comes with the kit is not sealed. It isn't welded shut. So it's fine for if you're using it on a car, because it's usually outside, obviously. But on a boat where you need the exhaust to be completely sealed, you have to get a different one. So this is one from for use on a Webesto. It's the same size as what it is that we use, but it is welded instead of just crimped, sealed, or spot welded.
Putting on stainless zip ties now.
Yep. Fine. Not a pretty job.
Good enough for who it's for.
Good enough for who it's for.
As per usual.
First try, didn't work. To prime it, I wasn't able to, even sucking the diesel myself through the hose, I could get it up to the pump, but it wouldn't stay there. It would end up cycling back through. There wasn't a valve in it, really. There's just too much head. It just required too much of the pumping. So I had to move the pump around, put it right next to the fuel tank, the port side fuel tank. So that's there now. Adjusted that. Got it primed. That went through just fine. Fuses in, so it lights up, so at least we know we're good there. Now it's basically going to go through and turn it on and hope that I didn't screw up anything. So from my understanding is, once we get the clock set, so right now it's 22 C's here. We'll put that up to, let's bring it up to 25 inside. And I think you just flip it on. I can hear it spinning out there.
I can hear something.
So all the heat ducting, we insulated that. Apparently that really helps with the efficiency of the system if you end up heating that, or all the ducting has insulation on it. So we ended up getting Armorflex. It's kind of like a neoprene foam type stuff. This is the high temperature version, which is perfectly adequate with the temperatures that run through the ducting. I think this is good for 160 degrees or 175 degrees Celsius. So it should be more than enough. We don't have to worry about that, but it will do a good job of insulating it, preventing the heat from going in the bilge, which really doesn't help us out that much.
So Something's happening.
Something's happening. I hear something.
There's a plane taking off in our boat.
I think it's working, Jess. So this is the Armaflex type stuff. It was significantly cheaper. Ended up being about it comes in 2-meter sections. We ended up getting 3 of them because you got free shipping at that point, and brought it under, I think, like $52 or something like that. So it was a very affordable approach. Instead of the Webesto ones are 36 inches, and those are like 20 something a section. So significantly lower price for this. Seems like a pretty good way to go. We'll see. There's warm air. Are you kidding me? It's actually working.
Yes.
That is freaking hot. So right now we're going to just leave this one attached. It is rotatable. It's the one that actually comes with it. So we can launch the heat up into the pilot house area or rotate it and bring it back to the salon. The other thing is we're going to have an open and closable one in the head, so we can adjust the temperature in there. And since we're completely open in here, it should be sufficient. But if we need to, then we can run, when I actually get more ducting, we can run another one further forward if we need to. But so far, it seems like this is going to be really freaking warm.
Yeah, I'm pretty warm sitting right here.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Good job.
Yay! Success for once.
Well, the test went well. We were able to get heat. So now one of the final steps was to get a fresh air intake. Unfortunately, again, I do not have enough of this 3-inch tube. So locally, all I was able to find was 4-inch dryer vent. So temporarily this will work, but we do have some more stuff coming, hopefully when we get to Norway, and new stainless steel brackets, and actually a new clamp for exhaust. We have one good exhaust clamp, and then this Jubilee clip. Not exactly what I want to do, but it works. It is leak-free for the time being, so. And then one other thing too is to make a cage around this exhaust so we can make sure that nothing touches it. For the next couple of days, we'll just have to make sure that none of our stuff in our lazarette rolls that direction. And when we're in Norway, hopefully I can find a piece of stainless steel or aluminum that I can bend and make kind of a protector for this area. But as it stands right now, it does work. We should be getting fresh air from the basically the combing, the cockpit combing is where I'm pulling the fresh air from. So there should be almost zero chance of exhaust coming through. The only way that could happen is if it somehow blew over the transom and back into the cockpit area, but not real likely to happen. And then that just goes and kind of can't see it, but terminates up here, which is the bottom of the cockpit combing.